Hi guys, Janine here. I am the face and creative force behind Graeae Horror. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. I am an avid fan of the horror genre and provide independent film reviews for major studio releases, independent shorts and features too, and also supporting independent film festivals in the horror genre across the UK and also globally. I am delighted to be able to join the wonderful horror miser Monty G in one of his latest Women in Horror podcast episodes, where we discuss everything female representation in the genre, my favourite final girl, and so much more. So be sure to keep across everything Graeae Horror and Horror Miser Monty G on all of our social channels, and keep an eye out for the episode dropping soon. Thanks for watching.
Y'all ready for this?
Hey, horror fans! Once again, it is me, the Horror Miser Monty G. Hey, horror fans! Once again, it is me, the Horror Miser Monty G. Welcome once again to my favorite series. It is Women in Horror, where I celebrate the contribution women have done in the genre of horror. And once again, I have somebody once again from the UK. Her name is Janine, and if I get this pronunciation right, Graeae Horror or Janine Horror.
It's Graeae Horror.
Oh,
So
Graeae Horror.
It's mythological.
Okay, Graeae Horror. Say hello, Janine.
Hi, nice to see you all, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Monty.
Yeah, so I actually happened to catch one of her videos when I was cruising through Instagram, and I said, wow, she's pretty good. And I was checking out her channel. So, of course, I asked her, would you like to come on in? Here we are once again. Now, of course, obviously, when I do my Women in Horror series, I basically explained to you, it's basically started off as a grassroots organization celebrating the contributions women have done in horror, where they are in front of the camera, behind the camera, written horror films, or have written horror books, or they have like social media platforms like you do, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, doesn't matter. It's fascinating because I believe, and most everyone believes, without women, we would not have the success that horror has begun, horror has right now, especially right now with the success horror is getting thanks to Sinners. So,
Yes.
my first question to you is very interesting because, as we all know, how do women get involved in horror? I mean, out of all the genres of films, how did you get hooked into a subgenre or a genre of films like horror? Because, most people don't think that women enjoy horror or would be
Oh,
fans of
no.
it.
So for me, it started kind of by accident. I remember being, because I'm a child of the 80s.
Hmm.
So I was, and I remember being at home quite young, around 6 years old, and my parents sent us to bed because it was really quite late. And the It mini series with Tim Curry was on
Ooh.
Sky TV at the time. They'd wanted to settle in and watch it. And I remember kind of sneaking back down the stairs and seeing something that was advertised with the little clown. And I was like, oh, he's wonderful. And sat and watched on the bottom step through the run of our banisters and watched the opening scene. And of course, everyone should be familiar with that.
Hmm.
And traumatizing to the point where I couldn't watch anything with Tim Curry for many, many years. I was
Ooh.
mortified of him as a person. And I don't know what, it just triggered me in a moment. And then realizing as a teen that obviously as you get older, you realize what's real and what isn't. And I was just fascinated to think, as a child, that was so traumatizing, but how they created something so traumatic, how the effects were made, how film is made. And it got me really hooked, like unlike any other genre. I mean, you have your romantic comedies and things which could be entertaining if you're into that, but I think
Mm.
horror as a genre is so fascinating on all scales, major studio releases right through to grassroots independent filmmaking. And it's a genre unlike any other in terms of creativity, in terms of, like, so horror as a concept, you could find something really traumatic and really terrifying that I would think, oh, that's that's okay. Whereas if
Mhm.
I'm to sit here and a spider was to run across my desk, I'd run, but you might be like, it's only a spider. So fear is so personal to every person, and that's what I really love about the genre. Is one film could play as the most traumatic thing to somebody, and the person sitting next to them could go, that's really boring, I didn't find that scary at all. And that's what
Mhm.
really draws me in as a genre. It's so polarizing and it's so open to creativity, and I'm just obsessed with it, truly, as we all
Yeah,
are.
yeah, I mean, yes, we all are because I grew up during the '70s,
Mm,
and for me, what I find fascinating. It's just like for me, I was 6 or 7 years old when I got into horror, watching Universal Monsters, the Mummy,
oh
and I find
yes.
that most of the women that I have interviewed always got their start in horror when they were little or they were
Hmm.
young. Yeah, it traumatized. Now, I find it fascinating. You find that you could watch a Tim Curry movie because it's fascinating because that's how good he was. Because
Yeah.
obviously, older when I saw the It TV miniseries because It is one of my favorite Stephen King books, and knowing how long and how big the novel was, I was wondering how
Mm.
they're going to translate it over into television adaptation, and they did a good job. I won't
Mm.
talk about the second part and the ending part about that one.
No, I was just going to say, as a concept, I'm also a huge Stephen King fan. And as
Mm,
a concept, I find that his adaptations are so difficult
mm,
to approach, especially with It. There's a lot of mythology and a lot of otherworldly things that how do you translate that to film? How do you
mm,
even get your head around, the cult of Chud? How do you even start there? Where do you go
mm,
with that concept? You just, some of
mm,
it you can't. And even like things like the Dark Tower series as a prime example, you've got a train with its own consciousness, right? That
mm.
is a threat to the characters in the book. How are you going to put that to film without it making laughable? Without making it unbelievable, and people are just going to be taken out of that moment. So I think that's ultimately a big challenge as well. But I think both the miniseries and the recent versions have done really well, especially with Welcome to Derry, because that's a nice bridge
Oh yeah.
between the two. So wonderful. I loved
I know,
Welcome to
yeah.
Derry.
I mean that was just a fantastic miniseries, and of course, obviously that opening thing.
It's
it's
wonderful.
it's like when I first saw that, I says, "Wow, this is great." It's like you have this nice little girl singing a very cheerful song, and then
Mhm.
you see the images playing in the background, which is definitely a concept that I really did enjoy. I could never get enough singing that song. So when I played it to some of my non-horror fans who I work with, they was like, "Lamont, yeah," said, "Lamont, you're crazy."
And I love the fact that the little hidden Easter egg in that is that
Mm,
the opening song gets
mm,
slightly slower and slightly more morbid with every episode. So when you watch
mm,
just the openings back to back, by the last episode, it's actually tonally very different to the first. And that's
mm,
such a wonderful little moment that you're like, if you pick it up, it's such an attention to detail that I
mm.
loved, made it even better.
I'm fascinated that you actually were. Did you actually see Legends first, or did you watch Legend after watching it?
Oh, much later, much
Yeah.
later. I remember going to. I caught Legends. I must have been in late teens. I couldn't
Hmm.
even watch Muppet Treasure Island. It was that bad. It was really
Oh.
bad. So it's quite traumatic. But I remember in my late teens buying a VHS copy of the It miniseries, because then it was two VHSs together,
Hmm.
and forcing myself through it. And I thought I'll be okay. Was not okay. And then I went to see, there was a movie called Burke and Hare, which was a famous it was an adaptation on some famous Scottish grave robbers,
Hmm.
and they had Tim Curry as a character in it, and it had Simon Pegg, and I can't remember the other lead, but Tim Curry was kind of like a side note character, but I didn't know he was in the film. So I'm in the cinema ready to enjoy this really cool kind of thriller, and he is on the large screen right in front of me, and I'm shaking, I'm crying, I had to leave. I was not okay. So I don't know quite why it was that an extreme a reaction, but yeah, now
Hmm.
I'm absolutely fine. I actually have his face tattooed on me. I'm a so now it's okay. It's a full
Uh,
360 moment, but at the time it was not fun.
yeah, because I would actually find that you were probably more scared of darkness from Legend as opposed to Pennywise.
Yeah, but again, it's about what you remember first, right? That's my
Mm,
first real childhood memory, and I think
mm,
it was just the threat of, oh, it's okay, it's a child in a really cute raincoat running after a toy
mm.
boat that his brothers made him, and then oh no, this wonderful clown. I didn't even think at that young age what on earth a clown would be doing in a storm drain. You just don't have that kind of
Well,
connection
of
yet. Your
course.
brain's not developed that way, and you just see something really colorful, and he's friendly, and he's stuttering, and he's got the little lisp, and he's kind of approachable, so you just think
Mm,
it's how that character is meant to be. And then all of a sudden that child is dead, and you're like, oh, clowns should not behave that way. You're never told that clowns are bad. You just see
mm,
them at kids' birthday parties, and they're great, and they're fun with the balloon animals and the joy, and then to see
mm.
that other side of it so young. And maybe I should have listened to my parents. Hey, I won't let her ever hear me say that, but listen to your parents, kids, because you're not
I
okay.
know, yeah, because obviously growing up in the '70s, I always say this when I do these interviews or when I talk to other horror people, because I grew up in the '70s, so I was lucky enough to actually see The Exorcist when it first came out in
Oh,
theaters. Now, obviously, my mother told me, she says, Monty, you're too young. The movie's too scary. I said, Mom, I want to see it. I'm fine. Because I
yeah,
really want to see it because, of course, at the time, obviously during the '70s, there's no such thing as social media. There's no internet, only word of mouth and people talking about how scary The Exorcist was. So me and
yeah.
my friends, we snuck to go see it.
Oh, I love that. We all did it though. That's the thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did, yeah. But yeah, that's it. Now the movie, 'cause people said that the movie scary. I said the movie didn't scare me, but it was very unnerving for a at the time 12-year-old kid get snuck
mm,
into the theater to see something that vicious and that weird that has never been before seen in a theater. And yes, people sketched out. They cried, they
mm.
screamed, they ran out of the theater. Everything that you heard about it happened because I was there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. I can only imagine. And it's one of those on my wish list, The Exorcist, that I wish I could go back and watch again for the first
Mm,
time. You
mhm,
know, everyone's got that list that you think, oh, I'd love to see that. And for me, the other one is Saw with the cold open, and then you've got just where he rises, Tobin Bell
mhm.
finally gets up. I wish I could experience that emotion and that feeling again for the
Oh
first
yeah,
time.
yeah, because seeing that the first time and not knowing, because he's laying down and
Yeah,
we don't know, and next he's getting up. Oh yeah, that got a lot of people. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, because I'm
yeah,
sitting in the theater, I'm seeing, wait a minute, did that guy move? He's
yeah.
alive. And
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
you've got the
yeah,
iconic music hitting now, the
and
da
then you
da
got,
da 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 da,
uh-huh.
and oh, it's
And
so
Lee Winnell just
wonderful.
and Lee Winnell just sketching out crazy like and say, wow, that's it. Wow, that was good. See,
Yeah.
when I see a twist like that, that means that lets me know that the writers did a good job because it's something that I did not expect. I said, the writers, you did a good job.
Yeah, exactly. And it set the standard now for the rest of the series and the rest of the franchise. Because now when you hear that note, that music, you know the end is coming, and you know
Mm,
something's good coming out of it. The thing that I loved about Saw, just to derail for a second, was the fact that like Tobin Bell actually lay on the floor for the whole of the production. Every time
oh
they
yeah.
was there was no body double, there was no nothing. He's like, I could do with a lie down at my age. Let's do it. You know? He just
Because yeah, no, because I cracked up laughing when he was talking about. He says, "Oh no, I was laying on the ground and saying, hey, look." It's like if he got paid to basically do nothing for all that time until the end of
wonderful. He's an icon. It's like Ari, oh, I've forgotten his surname. The original Jason, who's now made a lifetime of financial safety based on a 30-second clip of him jumping out of the boat to get the family.
uh,
And I'm like, you were on film for like 30 seconds and your life is made. It's
yep.
just you fall into the right moment, the right part, and into the stratosphere you go. It's amazing.
Mhm. All right. So, what are your thoughts regarding how women have been treated in horror films? From the old damsel in distress that they used to be to now, where we have intelligent or badass women in
I think
horror.
I think generally it's reflective of society as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
based on the era that the films are made. Genuinely, you look at, the old Hammer horrors and the Universal horrors of old, even things like Creature from the Black Lagoon, or non-genre pieces like King Kong. You've got that classic damsel in distress, because at the era that those films were made, a lot more, but they were more the house women of the house. They weren't allowed to work. They were there to rear the children,
Mm-hmm.
tend to the man who was out, providing for the household. So in film, it was kind of like, I'd imagine women watching film of that era would have been like, hey, she's iconic, she's beautiful, flawlessly styled, and that's what their goal would have been. It wouldn't have been to go like an Ellen Ripley and just go
Mm-hmm.
and kick ass. Like, that was never going to be something, I think, for that era. But moving through, obviously we had the final girl moments, and that really came into effect for basically, I think the first one for me was Texas Chainsaw. When she gets away at the end, you're like, oh, she had that fighting spirit. And for me, that was the first real final girl that I remember watching. Obviously, I was late to the game with Texas Chainsaw coming out in the 70s and born mid-80s, but like, just seeing that and how strong she was, and then building on that with Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, you get these really iconic strong women. And I think the foundations have been laid from those 70s onwards, and now even from I think in the last 10 years we're really starting to see stronger female leads. And I love the representation of women. Probably in the last 5 years we have some strong female villains, and we have women of different body types, different races, different identities, not even necessarily women. You could have non-binary characters that are all inclusive, and that would never have been the case 20 years ago. So I think it's all just mirroring what's happening in society, and providing new role models for newer generations coming into the genre. It's an important line of representation. It needs to be mirrored, and it needs to be somebody we look up to. I do think it's quite weird that as a fan base, for some reason we've kind of gravitated not so much towards the strong female leads, though more towards the villains. And I think that having female villains is a way to counteract that. I think it's really clever, and we're seeing that now. I've actually just done a review for Dolly that's coming out next week, and that is she is Max the Impaler, who's a famous professional wrestler who plays the antagonist in that. Strong female lead, and dominates that performance, and that's going to be a horror icon to follow, I think, in years to come. And there's others. There was a film called Frankie Maniac Woman that was out last year, which I'm obsessed with. It's another indie horror. And we have so many more wonderful female leads that are just taking that mantle from the helpless victim to a strong, empowered force. And that's what we need. And not to say that every film needs to be that way. Of course, strong characters can be of any gender, any race, any creed. But my God, to have a strong female representation, whether it be a villain or a hero, is always going to be a good influence, I think.
Yeah, because one of the things I always do when I ask this question, when we contrast, because you just mentioned it, when you take a look at 1939's King Kong and Fay Wray, and you compare it to Peter Jackson's King Kong and Naomi Watts and Downing, you can see the differences in the characteristics in the film, even though it takes place in the same time period. But yeah, as you can see, what Peter Jackson does to Anne Downing's character, it's a lot different and a lot of contrast as opposed to what Fay Wray did in the 1939 King Kong. Even though she's in vaudeville, she's struggling to make her ends meet, then she gets kidnapped. But not being the damsel in distress and screaming every time when Kong takes her. No, she actually stands up to Kong. She fights Kong. She puts Kong in his place.
Yeah.
Which
I was just going to say, I don't think audiences at the time of Peter Jackson releasing it would have accepted that Naomi Watts doing what the 39 version did. We wouldn't. It would make her as an actress look weak. It would make that character look weak. And as a reflection, again, of societal and where we are, I just don't think it would fly. I think the movie would pan because of that, particularly that aspect of the film wouldn't carry the same weight. So you have to
No.
have, she's weak in terms of, it's this dominating force of nature that you don't expect to see. Like, my goodness, Kong is overwhelmingly strong. He's almost undefeatable. And you just think, okay, so you've got to do something, and she's fighting in the means that she's able to do, and I don't think we'd accept anything different, to be honest. But it's really
no, because
interesting to compare them. It's really, really interesting.
yeah, because if they were to do that to Naomi Watts, I would say, wait a minute, that's kind of insulting. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's taking place through the 30s. I can get that part, but still, even women in the 30s still had some strength in their characters, that they weren't dominated, they weren't being dominated by men, even in the 30s. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that they decided not to do the same thing with the 39 version as with Peter Jackson's version. So I thought Peter Jackson and the writers did a good job in making her character a little bit more assertive, especially reflecting the times. So just like you said, when you take a look at what's been going on with women throughout the years. I mean, especially during the original Black Christmas film, would always pull that up.
Yeah.
Pull that up because during the women's movement that took place during the 70s, when you take a look at Elizabeth Hussey's character, she, even though she's pregnant, says, "No, I'm not going to have your baby because I'm going to school." I'm going to school. She refuses to be tied down. And of course, take a look at Margot Kidder's character. He will talk about a very assertive and doesn't hold her tongue and let you know how she felt. So I said that's a great expression about what's happening during the 70s.
Definitely. And I think that's a great example as well. You've got such a strong variety of female characters in that, set in that sorority house. And they're all so wonderful in their own way. And they all speak to different sides of women's power in different ways. You've got those that will verbally stand up. You've got those that are shutting down. They're not accepting their traditional, what's expected of them, their female role in society at the time. And it's so good to see. Again, it's just another role model that you go, actually, it's, you don't have to accept what society and what your peers expect of you. You have your own mind. This is your life. You can run how you want to run, right? So to have that reflected, it's got to be a great thing. And kudos to the filmmakers at that time as well for taking a risk, because they would have taken a risk initially, and it's paid off.
Speaking of Final Girls, how do you feel about the evolution of the Final Girls as opposed to when we first started it? They sort of like tripped and fell down and accidentally wind up being the final girl, as opposed to what we have now is the badass final girls.
Yeah.
They fight back, and they're also not the virginistic aspect that we have in slasher films. Some of these final girls now, they're flawed. They're not perfect.
Yeah, I think as well, because I keep harking back to it, but I think it's a societal thing as well, right? Because people's opinions of sexuality and being as open about being promiscuous, if that's even what they would have been, or just to be seen to be having those kind of relations, could have been frowned on at the time of those films coming out. I think that it's definitely a trope now that we've had it decades of cinema where that final girl character stereotype has existed since the 70s. And I think that over the decades we've learned to really almost predict that role's behavior. After 10, 15, 20 years, your character in the final girl position has to evolve to make it more interesting to the audience.
Yes.
I think if you carry on of course, like if you have a knife-wielding maniac behind you, unexpectedly or expectedly, you're going to run, you're going to trip over things, especially if you're in an unfamiliar environment. If you're in woodlands, I can't imagine anyone being able to run through woodlands and not trip over. So it's a natural thing. You're put under undue stress. But I think if every character that you put in that final girl role acts the same way, it takes away an air of believability for the audience in terms of like, you're not invested, because then you expect the same from that character trope. And to have it evolve now to where the final girl ultimately is sometimes not always the expected one. And I think I'll get there. I will think of some examples of films where you have a lead female effectively right up until a certain point, and then they switch it on you and that character dies, and you're like, well, hang on, that was our final girl, but actually it's the quiet one in the corner that nobody expects, and she's the one that takes out the killer at the end. So it's I like the way that filmmakers are starting to play that on, turn it on its head, and not really give us that predictability anymore. Because I think as well, the other thing is that for me in particular, I'm finding it harder the more horror I consume, because I watch several films, sometimes 2 or 3 in a day, and the more you're exposed to it, the less scared you are. So if you can build an air of unpredictability, that makes it enjoyable. Because for me, horror isn't about the scare factor anymore. It's about engaging story. I love the gore. I love practical effects. If you can make a really awesome looking kill or a great looking scene, I'm drawn into that as well. I'm not so much drawn into jump scares are boring, sudden changes in music don't get me. It's not thrilling. The thrill for me is in seeing how the filmmaker has portrayed a story and elevated horror in some regard. I just look for other things now, and I think the final girl thing is another one of those tropes that if it didn't evolve, you'd lose your audience completely.
Yeah, I would agree that they had to come up with something a little bit more than what we were seeing, especially throughout the 80s. And
Yeah.
I think with the 90s, and of course, obviously with Scream, that they really had to change the aspect of the final girls, and especially what we have now. Because we have our Ripleys, we have our Nancys, and of course now we have our Sidney Prescotts. But I believe now, and not just with the the white final girls, but now we actually have some black final girls that are really
Yes.
badass now too. Because I actually did one of my last videos. I was paying tribute to more of the final black girls that have come out throughout the years now. So
Yeah, exactly.
not just straight, not even just straight. Some of these final girls are actually they're not either non-binary or they're in same-sex relationships. And I like that aspect because you do have to change with the times, even though some people might not agree with it.
Absolutely. I mean, one example of that is Barbarian.
Mhm.
That
Oh yeah.
that woman is a tour de force in that film, and she's
Oh yes.
bloody wonderful. She's
Hmm.
absolutely phenomenal. She didn't take any shit. She didn't listen to Alexander Skarsgård when he said, instantly you're on the back foot. You're going to an Airbnb. There's somebody you don't recognize. She's checking her phone. She's doing all the right things. She's locking the door. She's making sure she's not sharing wine with him. She's not doing all of that. She's trusting her instinct. And I think that's also something to be said for females in horror at the moment. They're being trusted to act on their own impulse, whereas I think previously it was oh, I'm terrified, let me fluster, let me do the girl thing and panic and shake and then worry what to do. It's not that. It's logical thinking, trusting your gut and going, hell no, we're not doing this. I'm not standing for that.
I know,
It's
yeah.
it's truly wonderful to see.
Yeah, because that's what I talked about when I talked about. I said I love the fact when Georgina Campbell, her character was like when she finds out that the room is double booked and she doesn't know this guy at all, and she does all the right logical things.
Yeah.
She takes his picture. I mean, she takes his picture. She looks for. She actually has his driver's license, make sure everything is matched up. Take a picture of that, and then she documents everything and she lets everybody know where she's staying at because obviously that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and there's another great example of that if you've seen Fresh. So that's a
Yeah, I
really
saw
great
Fresh.
film. Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's a great one. And again, it's the best friend though. The
Hmm.
main protagonist goes along. She falls in love and she's swept in emotion and she goes away with this guy that she doesn't know and she
Hmm.
plays into that role. And you're sitting there as a woman going, girl, what are you doing? We've all done it, because you get
Hmm.
swept up and you're like, oh my god, someone's giving me attention, this is wonderful. But it's the best friend, and those little moments where you see her in the office and she's got a message, she's like, I'm going to geo-track. Where is that? Then she Google images search what she's got on the message. She's like, that's a stock image. I don't trust that. And then she's like, girl, where are you? I don't trust this guy. Background checking. We all need a best friend like that in our lives. That was such a wonderful character. And at the end, spoiler alert, she's the one who takes out the wife that's in on it. She starts it all. She's like, why? Oh, there's a famous line in it. And I was like,
I can't remember it, but I know you're talking about, though.
There's a wonderful line. It's like, why do bitches like you always exist? Like, why did women always screw other women? And it's so true. And I remember getting so excited when I saw that for the first time, and I was like, yes, like screaming at the screen, so happy with a character like that.
Because I was laughing at that scene, and my wife was telling me, "What's so funny?" I said, "A woman is actually doing something that she can't stand other women being, and that's taking up for a man that's obviously committing vicious crimes, and for some reason she's helping him." And then I was laughing at it.
She kind of, it's really hard, that one, because it plays into so many familiar settings. Obviously, hopefully none of my friends have to experience anywhere near that kind of level of horrendous behavior from anyone they're involved with, male or otherwise. But like, just to say that, you know, we've all been there, we've all been swept up in emotion, and I think that character was so wonderfully played to be swept in that emotion. But having that tour de force in your best friend, I don't think the ending would have laid out anywhere near as well for her. She'd have been on a packing shelf in a supermarket before long.
Yep, unfortunately.
Yeah. So without that best friend, that film would have fallen on its feet and that girl would have gone. So we really needed, and I'm so grateful that the lead actress in that wasn't your typical final girl. Yes, she got the comeuppance at the end. She got the final blow, as it were.
She did. Yeah, she did. But thanks to her best friend, yes.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that best friend, she wouldn't have got away. And oh my God, that woman, I need a character like that in my life. I need a best friend like that, because everyone needs that woman in their life.
Now, here's an interesting question since we're speaking about that. How do you feel that women were disrespected or objectified during the early slasher films of the 80s with all that gratuitous nudity? Because it seems like, especially after, I would say, Friday the 13th, and we just got this massive onslaught of slasher films, but at least I would say over half of them had really nothing to do with the movie, but for some reason we had to see a woman's breast, we had to see a woman's behind, or we had to see full frontal nudity. It really had nothing to do with the movie itself, other than, let's see some naked women.
I think it's a selling point. Honestly, at the time, it would have been, you look at a lot of the artwork for those kind of films, and a lot of them, unfortunately, were video nasties, as we called them here in the UK. A lot of them were banned for some period of time, for over a decade. But I think a lot of the art, you've got to look back at the 80s, late 70s artwork, it's all scantily clad women. I mean,
especially Hammer. Especially Hammer.
Yeah. Friday the 13th, you've got her in the shirt with barely covering anything on the behind with a blade, and you're like, but what has that got to do with Jason Voorhees? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But it's a selling point, it's a marketing tool, and I think I would be interested to learn how many of those actresses would have gleefully done the role had they have maybe known perhaps what was involved. And if they did know, then that's wonderful, all power to them. But I wonder if the script was flipped on them and they were told after signing on, actually, this is something you want to do. Not necessarily to say that they wouldn't have done it, but it would have been an interesting conversation to overhear. I'd have loved to have been a fly on the wall to figure out actually how many of those would have been okay or signing on initially to do it. There is also, I think one of the older ones that really started to flip the script on that was I Spit on Your Grave. That was the first real rape revenge film that I remember, that you had this vulnerability, this situation that's absolutely horrendous, and any kind of essay in a film or real life is obviously deplorable. But I think that she rose above that situation and gave herself a reason to fight back. And that's the first kind of time that I've seen that kind of violence in a film, but also the gratuitous nudity had a point. It
Yes.
wasn't the sake of showing a woman in the nude for the sake of doing it. There was a
Mm.
purpose behind it. We still get it now where you have nudity played in, and it's not just women, it's men as well. You get the
Uh-huh.
buff models with the six packs and whatever, because you're just going to flash it for, you know, for gratuitous reasons or whatever. But I think it's becoming less and less so. And again, it's a social thing, it's an acceptance thing. I think at the time it was the standard, it was the you know, the grass ring, it was what everyone was kind of doing, and it's an acceptance, and that's what we do in film. But actually changing the script and thinking, okay, that why does it serve a purpose? No.
Mhm.
Okay, move on. Then if it doesn't need to be there, if it's a bit of light entertainment, there's a sex scene, cool, wonderful, we all enjoy a bit of that, that's fine. But to
Mhm.
have it gratuitous and shoved in your face for no reason, it doesn't bring anything to the story. I think it's invaluable. I don't think there's a need for it.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. Because I
yeah,
think maybe the people who are marketing the film, especially were men, and I guess they thought that at particular time only teenage boys and maybe some adult men were the only ones seeing slasher films.
yeah,
So they felt as though that look, let's market this film and have some scantily clad women in it because we want them to go see this film, and not
yeah.
understanding that there are also women who are also watching these films and enjoyed horror films. I'm pretty sure that they were not happy seeing a whole bunch of naked women in almost every other film that came out, during the 80s. I mean, a
Perhaps
prime
not. Sorry, I was just going to say perhaps not, but I also think as well that I wonder if the number and the volume of women watching horror during those times were
mm,
maybe just as high as men, but they never spoke up about it because of the
mhm,
way that women were represented in those genre of films. They
mhm,
could go and they could watch it, they could enjoy it, but maybe they did so in the comfort of their own homes. They weren't as
mhm,
outwardly spoken. Obviously, we didn't have the social platforms and the connectivity we do now. Like you and I would never have been able to speak as we are today 20
mhm.
years ago, let alone 40
Oh
years
no.
ago. So, I mean, that level of conversation was really never that broad. I don't think we would never have had the means to connect in that way. So, I wonder if women at the time may have had the same exposure, but they wouldn't have been going to theatres, I don't think, in the droves that we are now to enjoy
Mhm,
it. I think it would have been a hidden thing. We don't really speak about it. But and again, the enjoyment level, I couldn't really speak to that because not being of that time, not being in that circle, I would have loved to have jumped back and just to see really
mhm.
out of intrigue what a women's perception of filmmaking was at that time.
Yeah, because me being in that time period, I don't remember any women speaking out. But then again, I just didn't see a lot of women watching slasher films. I mean, there were some that go and watch it,
Mm,
but they were there just to see Jason or Freddy or Michael do what they normally do. But they I didn't really hear anyone complain about the
mm,
gratuitous nudity, and especially at that particular time most of the gratuitous nudity came in the direct-to-video DVDs or direct-to-video
mm.
VHSs. Those films,
Yeah.
that's probably the reason why we never heard anything about it because at the time there was no social media and mostly
Mm,
all the films were going straight to VHS tapes. So
yeah.
they didn't hear anything about it. But the prime example that I have for this when it comes to Jennifer's body and the
Yes.
fact that we have Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried in a 15-minute makeout scene, and
Yeah.
obviously for some reason the studios and studios and marketing team decided to say let's just push Megan Fox in a sexy schoolgirl outfit because we want to push that aspect of the film, even though that really was not what the film was about. It was not about two hot girls making out.
No, and again, it's a draw, isn't it? Right? Because you look at
Hmm.
Megan Fox, she's a draw. People went to see Transformers because she was in it, bent over the hood of a car, right? So it's true though. Nobody
I
went for
know,
Michael
yeah.
Bay. Nobody went for Michael Bay. We all went for Megan Fox. So
Uh,
it's and of course the childhood nostalgia and robots, and that's wonderful. But Megan Fox was the draw, right? So when she wasn't
yeah.
in the franchise, you kind of took that
So I'm
element
like,
away. But
because
yeah,
I'm looking at the film and I see that scene. It's like, why is he doing that? No, I said I'm not here to see Megan Fox. I'm here to see because obviously I'm a huge Transformer fan. I
Yeah,
want to see the Transformers. I want to hear Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime, not
yeah,
stare at Megan. I'm not here to stare at Megan Fox
no,
for the next 10 minutes and say no, no, no. But
exactly.
and he really, and there was no need for him. That's the reason why That's the reason why Megan Fox was pissed off because she said that he was trying to sexualize her, and that's not what you want to do. The main purpose is to sell the robots. You're
Yeah,
there because a lot of people love the Transformers.
yeah.
You know, you
But I
know.
think it's also like you look at marketing as a whole, just even outside of the film industry. You're going to
Mm,
market a product. What are you going to buy? You're going to
mm,
buy a product that's just the product being shown, or you're going to buy it with a hot looking person?
mm.
Because that's what's
I
going to
know
draw
that.
your eye, unless you're specifically in the market for whatever they're selling. It's
Mm,
the visual of an aesthetically pleasing person that's selling you that product. That's why
mm,
you traditionally, TV presenters, news anchors even, are like beautiful, right? They're
mm,
especially women. They're flawless. Their makeup, their nails, the hair, effortlessly put together. They probably have someone in wardrobe, but goodness, you're a news anchor, you're there for an hour of a morning every day, but you look immaculate. And it's that perception that you have to have that image in order to sell something, to even in order to be in the public eye, in order to present something. And I think that's something that unfortunately has carried into horror, but it's one of very few genres where you can be ugly. Like it
mm,
encourages that
mm.
visceral ugliness to come forward because the horror fans love that. You could be as beautiful as you want. But I mean, look at Demi Moore in The Substance.
Oh yeah. Mm,
Gorgeous, right? She's stunning in her 50s, still
mm.
flawless. She took a hell of a risk to put herself out there for
Oh
the
yeah.
sake of putting forward a really body positive
Mm,
message to say that actually women who age in the public eye do not need to be looked down on. They do not need to be discriminated against. And they certainly
mm,
don't need to have their careers at risk because they're of a certain age. They're washed up and replaced with a younger model. That's the
mm.
messaging I took out of it. And I
That's
think Demi Moore has gone up in my estimation as an icon now.
mm.
She's absolutely, she's blown my mind for taking that risk. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
another
And I
important
thought
message we need.
and I thought she did a pretty good job too. For a woman as old as she is, and she's still very beautiful. And the
Mm,
fact that she took that risk, and that's what I thought the movie was showing was that actually see that even though it's obviously a satire and an exaggeration about what some of the producers do when they said when a woman reaches a certain age, oh no, we're going to go with a younger person because you're not hot enough anymore.
You
And
say
I,
that, but I wonder if that's even the case. I think no, I'm not going to blanket and say all producers are that. But you
mm,
look at that, there are certain famed producers who are now shamed producers for reasons.
mm,
So actually, it's played out on something that was very very real,
mm,
and obviously dramatized for extent. But I think it was another real issue that not even just
mm,
for age, but to be overlooked because of the way you looked, because of the way you acted, because you weren't
yep,
eye candy as they saw it. You know, there
mm,
was a perfect comment where the dancers were auditioning before Sue comes along, and the first dancer who's in before Sue, she does her thing. They're not even paying attention. She walks out, and then they go, yeah, tits could have been bigger. They could have been higher. And that's all they
mm,
say. There's no
mm,
constructive criticism. And then she walks in and it's flawless. Yeah, everything's in the right place, is what he says to
mm,
her. Everything's in the right place. It's not about her ability to do the job that she's, auditioning for. It's that perception that they fit the standard that they have in their head. Um,
mm,
and that's terrifying as a
I know.
woman, as anyone, to fit the mold.
Mm,
And I know that not just women, men have body issues, that everyone's got self-confidence issues on some level, and it needs to be spoken about, it needs to be addressed. And I think horror is a great way of doing that, but taking it to the extreme, you know
mm. Okay. Obviously, you talked about this earlier, but your thoughts on the rape, revenge, and essay films? Do you think
Hmm.
a man writer director can faithfully make them, or do you think it's more of a woman director can actually faithfully make a rape, revenge, or an essay film?
I think it could be either, because I
Mm,
think essays also happen to men. I think it's that behavior isn't just exclusive to women. We hear more about it for women, but I think actually it could be either. I always find it's really interesting when people view films a certain way because a man has written a woman's part. And there are instances where it doesn't work, but there are instances where you would never know. And I think a prime example where you flip it on its head, and not necessarily with the essay thing, but to flip it on its head and to do a male perspective, but directed by a woman, was American Psycho. Now, a lot of people were shocked that a woman directed that. And she did phenomenal work. And Christian Bale,
she was great.
yeah, and Christian Bale, you can't look at him as anything but a narcissist now, because he portrayed that character with such efficiency. But you would think it's such a male perspective in the 80s in Wall Street, where you have a certain, and again it goes back to a different image, right? You have a certain perception of how you need to be in a professional environment, and if you don't meet this, you don't have the right font on your business card even, then you're out, you're extradited, that's it, you're dead to the world that you're in. So I think having that as a male dominated industry in the 80s and then have a woman produce that with a woman's perspective was absolutely incredible, and it blew my mind when I learned that. So I think that when you hark back to SA films, I think it's perhaps beneficial to have a woman, maybe, but I think it doesn't need to be a question of gender on who's doing it. I think it needs to be a question of, do they have the right mindset, the right visibility? Are they going to be bringing their directorial expertise in the right way to the subject matter? I think, are they going to treat it sensitively? Are they going to promote the right message? That's more the question we should be asking against the gender, I think, more than anything. It's just whether they're the job. I don't think
because I think that is true, because when you take a look at Revenge by Carol, I never can't get her last name.
No, the same lady who directed The Substance.
Yeah, and I take a look at Revenge and how she filmed that. Now, she didn't show the brutality of the essay, but she just basically, obviously, we know what happens, and obviously, I thought she did a good job in just knowing what was going to happen to the poor girl, and after she survives the fall and she takes her revenge, that was still pretty good. But then you take a look at a film like Irreversible. And obviously, we see how brutal and how disgusting that scene takes place. Now, it was fascinating when I actually found out that the actress Monica, I can't remember her last name, Monica Baracco, she was the one that told the producer or the director, no, we got to really do this hard. And the reason why she said that is because the audience needs to know why her friend was so dead set against being a crap or being the shit out of those two people that did that to her. Because when you take, obviously, because the film is filmed in reverse, and we see him going after those guys, I'm like, wow, why is he kicking the ass? He's beating the shit out of these two guys. But then when we get to that particular part, then we know why. We said, okay, that makes sense, because when we see that scene, yes, it's brutal, it's disgusting, it's terrible, and we hate seeing it. But the reason why we do it, the reason why that is so brutal, is because of the fact that, hey, look, he really wanted to get after this guy because that's his friend, and that's kind of the same type of reaction that I know I would have, if a loved one of mine or even my wife suffered through that. So my first instinct is to beat the shit out of them.
Even if I found out a stranger, I would have the same guttural response, regardless of the connection to me. It's such an interesting one, isn't it? Because Revenge is a great example of that. There are visceral enough scenes in that film. But the scene, you can see her, she's struggling, and the colleague, the guy hunting guy that's with him, that's creating the act, is stood in the doorway eating Cheetos, watching it happen. And you can see her slammed up against the French doors, screaming like, help. And you can see her mouthing help while it's happening. You don't see everything below the shoulder. You don't see any of it, but it's there. It's enough of a visual to know how uncomfortable that moment is. And that's such a wonderful film. I'm obsessed, and it's baked in sunlight. I'm a big advocate for horror that's well lit.
Mhm.
The brutality, you can really see it. There are so many films now, just to go off tangent a little bit, that are shot so dark. No matter how bright you turn up your settings, you can't see anything. Like, I can't cope with it. Just give us some lighting. Like, if you're gonna
Oh
make a
man,
point of filming something brutal, why put it in if it's dark? You can't see it.
Alien versus Predator Requiem is a great example. It's like I can't see shit. Why
Yeah,
can't I see? I can't see the Pred alien. I still
yeah.
can't see. It's like what?
Well, that's
It's
probably a
like,
good thing, to be fair. It wasn't great.
I
It's
mean, it
like,
was. I mean, put it up. It was a bad enough movie, and then you can't even see anything.
and yeah, I mean, but then you have the opposite. You have Neil Marshall doing The Descent, which is a
Mhm.
film about girls going underground, and you
Mhm.
see everything because you
Yeah.
continue to see everything. What is hidden in the shadows is hidden until the reveal. So it's
Mhm.
purposeful. Like, you would think a film like that, if it was filmed by certain directors, you wouldn't
Mhm.
see a thing until she gets out the hole at the end. It's
Mhm.
so, it blows my mind, honestly, the direction that some of these take. It's a bit
I know.
crazy.
It's like, come on. It's like, yeah, I know that you're trying to at least create the tension of darkness, but come
Yeah.
on, not to the point where the audience can't see anything. It's like
Yeah.
you got to have some type of artificial light or something that at least lets us see what the predator. We see the predator, we see what's happening, but
Mm.
we couldn't see anything.
And then the other bugbear, to flip it on its head, is
Mm,
when films, I think it's more so for TV shows and for TV made movies and for sometimes for independent, but not always, is when they film in broad daylight and then they put a filter over it in post and it
yeah.
makes it look dusk and huey. You're like, the shadows still tell me it's
Mm.
noon. Why are you trying to tell me it's coming to dusk? Like, just wait till dusk. If it's a production issue, then change your story and make it noon. Don't try and
Mhm.
fool us with some sci-fi channel B movie rubbish filter over the top. We can all put an Instagram filter on it, love. Like, it's not going to change the film, you
Yeah,
know?
no, it's like, come on. I understand. Yeah, and you understand you have a limited budget, but at least come on, try to make it look somewhat good.
Yeah, exactly. It just blows my mind that they do that, and you can see it, and it takes me out of the moment every time. I
Mhm.
can't. It's yeah, it's a shame, but it's one of those things.
Do you think women directors of horror films are finally getting the respect that they deserve?
Absolutely. I think
Mhm.
women across the board are so actually, and not just directors, authors, in the workplace generally. It's been a long struggle. And I think that equality still has a long way to go across the board. But I think we're starting to see a lot more representation. We have incredible cinematographers, editors, Foley
Mhm.
artists who are women working in that industry who don't have the visibility, again, because they don't get the directors and those at the forefront of filmmaking get the flowers. At the end of the day, they get the thing, but there's other roles in the film industry that need to be spoken about and coming to the foreground as well. And they're in so incredible. I forget her name. There's a stunt woman who was in Death Proof, the
Um,
Tarantino film.
yeah, I know you're talking about.
Phenomenal.
I
Yeah,
can't remember her name too, but
I
I know
imagine.
you're talking about too. Yeah, but yeah, she's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that kind of thing, you think, oh, stunt person would be predominantly male, but she did all of
Mhm.
her own stunts tied to the hood of the car, spinning around on a bit of fabric. You're like,
Mhm.
holy! The first time I saw that was like, oh my god, I admire you so much. I want to meet you. I want to talk to you. How did you get into that line of work? Like,
Mhm.
how did you think? Like, and how is your perception? How do people perceive you in that line of work as well? And it's I think it's just across the board in filmmaking that women are having more visibility. They've always been there, but I think it's just now we're maybe more accepting, or just also people I think have just had enough. Like, why should I settle for being in the background to somebody? Just gender shouldn't play a part in my
Mhm.
ability to be creative, to be effective in a media environment. It shouldn't play a part. It shouldn't be spoken about. But here we
Mhm.
are, several decades later, still it's a real topic of conversation. It's an important conversation to have, but it shouldn't be the case, right? We should, and the
Mhm.
same with the sexuality. There's a huge, obviously, discussion ongoing at the moment about people's gender and how they decide to identify themselves. Like, why is that even a conversation? Just let people be who they want to be and how they
Yeah.
want to present themselves. It's no different. Like, if you went and you bought your Jason t-shirt, I can see, and it'd be like, well, I'm going to discriminate you because I don't like Jason. That it's a bare bones thing, but you're like, I'm going to take issue with that. But that doesn't affect me personally. So why should it? Why should any decision that somebody else makes, unless they're harming others, why should it affect you? But unfortunately, we're in a society where too many people get easily offended by things. They believe their opinion is the only one that's right. And it's so unfortunate that we still, as a society, feel that we have to justify everything we do and our own self-worth. We have to push ourselves. That doesn't sit right with me. I don't understand it.
It's like, for me, you love who you love yourself, and you love who you love. It doesn't matter, if it's another man, another woman, that's who you love. To me, if that's what makes you happy, if that would make you happy, if you want to be called them or they, that would make you happy. It's like you're non-binary, if you're pansexual. That's your life, if that's what makes you happy. I have no problem with it. It's not affecting me. It has no affecting on my life whatsoever. I'm still going to be Lamar Kenley Smith Jr.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm still going to sit at home and watch all my trashy slasher films that I love so much. And you go about your business, I go about mine, and we're all happy. We're still living in the same world. You're not affecting me in any way. And as I say, if anyone is causing harm to another person, that's a different situation. But we just need to be a bit more accepting as a society, really.
Do you think that we'll get a female or horror icon in the same vein as Freddy, Jason, and Michael?
It's starting to happen. It is starting to happen, but I think it's women identifying that they are icons. It's as I say, the film that's coming out next week, Dolly, is going to be a bit of a game-changing moment. It's a big film, it's a big studio film, and it's got a lot of eyes on it already, and it has a really formidable female character. And I think we are getting a lot more. I think it's more in the independent scene, though, because I'm a big advocate for independent filmmaking. And there have been a lot of films released in the last 5 years that have huge female iconic, visually iconic. The way the characters are written are iconic, and the way that they approach filmmaking is wonderful. The whole process, the way the character arcs are made, and the choices that are made for those particular characters are wonderful. I wonder if we're going to get it in mainstream horror. It will come, but I wonder if it's not yet. I don't think we're going to get anything that big. And I wonder if it's the timing of it, right? Because I think they're iconic for a reason, for the time they were in, because we didn't really have the female representation of those bad guys in the 80s when the Jasons, Mike Myers, and Freddy Kruegers were around. We didn't really have that. Sleepaway Camp is a different example. Angela, she's one that stands out to me as a villain, but it was never that iconic. Obviously, Friday the 13th, you had Pamela Voorhees, but again, it was a one and done. Everyone remembers Jason, and Pamela's an afterthought. It's so I think maybe in time we will, but we'll have to see. But there are definitely more female coming to the front, especially in the villains. There are a lot of great villains.
I mean, obviously, everyone loves Aunt Gladys from Weapons.
Yes, she is wonderful. And I think the thing that I love about her more is the mystery. So I'm not looking forward to the backstory film that is in development. I personally love the character for what she is, but I love the air of mystery. You don't need a backstory with these Mike Myers. Like, I love the Rob Zombie Halloweens, and I know that's probably going to blow a few fans off my socials, but I don't care. I love Rob Zombie as a filmmaker. I love the grittiness. I love the grindhouse style of filmmaking he brings. I love the fact that he is the same persona on stage musically as he is as a director, as he is at home. He is that person, and that's what he brings to the film industry. And to have the gusto to be able to take on a Halloween movie and to do it in his style, you have to admire. But I wonder, I think to myself, are we ready for a female lead at that level, and I think we absolutely are. And I think Aunt Gladys is a great example of that. You need that air of mystery there, though, to be able to bring on something that's truly iconic, because one of the things that I love most is when horror in particular, you don't need everything mansplained to you. You don't need every bit of exposition in a film to explain why a character chose to do this. Like, it's like you have a cup on a table, they move it 3 inches to the left. Why did they do that? Oh, well, let me give you 5 minutes of exposition to explain why they did that. No, I don't need the exposition. And that's why Weapons worked so well, because you have this creepy character, the character where she's got the drug user in the tent and she's lurking in the woods like Pennywise. You're like, why is this old lady lurking in the woods? Well, I don't know. You don't get that explained away because it doesn't need to be. She's a threat.
No, it does.
And if she's terrifying, let her be terrifying. Let that play out up here to make it more scary for more people. The more illusion you strip away from a film, the less enjoyable it is.
Yes, I agree. Because it's the one reason why I didn't like the Thorn trilogy of Michael Myers, because to me it took away the mystique of what made Michael. You know, from the original 1979 film, and for what Donald Pleasant said, the man is just evil, and that's it. We have no reason why he kills. He just killed. We don't need a cult.
I think a great example of that, of a killer that just kills, is In a Violent Nature.
Oh, yeah.
And he just, I love that film so much. I know a lot of people didn't get on with it, but you actually follow the villain and he just happens on people and he changes direction. You hear someone, he's like, well, they're over there. I'm going to kill you. The strangers. Why did you target us? You were home. That's the most haunting line in cinema I can remember for a couple of decades now. That hits so hard because it could be anyone. A light's on in your home invasion. That's terrifying. So, I mean, not every action needs to be justified, because in the world, the real terror is the stuff that you can't explain away. It's not the big monsters, because we haven't seen that yet. You never know. Stuff will be coming out of Chernobyl in 10 years. We don't know. So, but like, genuinely, like, the real terror is somebody who's just going on a mass shooting because they felt like it. Goes and shoots up a school. Well, that's terrifying, because it could be anybody who goes into a supermarket and stabs loads of people. That is an everyday terror that we all now live with. That's more traumatic to me than, you know, an alien coming from space. Yeah, okay, if it happens, then of course let's deal with it. But we all now live in a society where we have, you know, metal detectors in our schools. Like, that's not normal. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Who is your favorite final girl and why?
This is really hard. I'm always going to go back to Ellen Ripley. Like, I have reasons. So I love H.R. Geiger as an artist. So like growing up and stuff, I knew Alien. I'm that old. I had a Commodore 64 and I remember Aliens being the first game that I had with my joystick. And there was a moment you run down the tunnel in your little 8-bit kind of graphic and the alien would lurk in the tunnel and he'd get you. He'd hide in the pipes and come and grab you every time. And I'd throw the joystick and not be happy. But for some reason, like growing up, Sigourney Weaver was an icon for me. She's always been an icon in film. She holds herself with such high regard, such class, but she plays these really gritty roles. Copycat, the serial killer thriller she was in the 90s, is wonderful. She plays that victim so well. She's traumatized, but she's got such strength and air about her. Obviously, Ellen Ripley is a strong, formidable woman who doesn't really have a maternal instinct, but looks after a young girl. She looks after a blinking cat. She keeps that cat safe. Like, trust the woman with the cat, people. If everyone on that crew listened to her, they would most part be okay. And then I think that, I just think Ellen Ripley is a prime example of an atypical final girl that during the franchise then steps away from that trope. She's initially, she's the unexpected strong character in Aliens. She's more kicking ass. She's in the big mechs and she's taking them all out. And you're rooting for her because you know that come the end of Aliens, she's set to be that strong character. But I think that come Alien 3, you're like, she's lost her humanity, she's stripped, she's a droid, she's a obviously a replica of her former self, and she loses all humanity, and that's a different kind of strength altogether. So for me, she's iconic on different levels, but she really is the epitome of what I would want to see identified in film across the board. She's wonderful. But of course, there's more Sigourney Weaver as well. Like, you can't.
Oh yeah.
can't
I've
argue.
always liked Sigourney Weaver. She's been a very great actress throughout her time.
And even I
Uh,
remember being a kid, my first film in the cinema was Ghostbusters 2. So I'm and I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. I have the terror dog on my leg. I've got him tattooed, and I'm a big Ghostbuster fan. It was huge in our household. So, and I remember the scenes of her with Bill Murray doing the sidekick cards and the reading and everything. It was just So anything with her in, I'll watch. She's wonderful.
it amazes me watching Ghostbusters for the first time, and we get to see Dan Aykroyd goes by, until Dickless here turn off the generator, and he says, "Eddie, guys, is this true?" He says, "Yes, it's true. This man has no dick." And the whole audience just died laughing.
And it's laced full of male humor, even when they're fighting the monster at the end, and they're like, "Don't cross the streams." It's only when you're an adult you realize what that means, especially as a girl. You don't know what that means, but men in lavatories are like all across the world are going, "We got that joke." But when you're a woman, you don't get it, and then you get older, and you're like, "Oh, got you." Wonderful film. Oh, it's so good.
Okay. So what led you to create your social media channel, Graeae? Oh boy, I'll get it
Graeae
right.
Horror. It's Graeae.
Graeae Horror.
Yeah. So Graeae. Just to explain quickly, the Graeae is actually from mythology. So you obviously have the Fates. So like Macbeth, you have the three witches. The Graeae are parallel to that. So they had a kind of hand in the Fates, and hence the eyeball in my logo. I spend a lot of time in my personal time watching horror. I always have since a young age, and I've as much of a social butterfly, you can tell I like to chat, which is wonderful, but also a hindrance. And I found that growing up, I didn't really have many people to talk to about horror and the stuff that I really enjoyed. My best friend will testament to this. We'll go and we'll have a pint and a catch up because I don't see him very often, but when I do, he's like, "How are you?" And all I talk about is film, and it's because that's all I really deeply enjoy and get passion from. And I found that I moved across the country in the summer, and starting again, new group of friends, and kind of slowly building a network of people with the similar interests to me. But it took a while, and when I first moved, I was like, I'm fed up seeing all these films that I love but having no one to talk to about them. So I thought, well, I'll start a little Instagram channel and I'll just talk about stuff that I watched and I enjoyed. And it built a little bit of traction, and people started to resonate, and they were like, "Oh, this is cool." And then I had people reaching out going, "Do you have any recommendations? This is what I like." And I was like, "Well, I personally, if you like X, I can show you Y and Z." And they were like, "Okay." And then that built up, and I locally came across online. I found a group of like-minded people who predominantly female, who are authors, podcasters, literary experts. There's one who's does talks at universities and such like in women's representation in horror, which is fantastic. She would be a great actual guest for your podcast. I will recommend her. And it's really interesting. And I fell into that, and I thought, well, it's a free meetup, I'll go. And that built a real network for me online. And from that, I've met a lot of other creatives, and I've been quite fortunate. I've got a lot of opportunities. I've really always enjoyed independent filmmaking, as I mentioned before, because there's a real creativity there without having the limitation of a giant studio to stifle you creatively. Yes, you have the budget, you have the means to create wonderful filmmaking, but you also have a board of 10, 12, 14, APs behind, who are the financial backing of a film, who then have a decision and a say in creative. So I got into spending time on YouTube and looking at Alter as a great platform for independent filmmaking, and who put trials and proof of concept films for something that they may have in their mind as a bigger project, but they release them to YouTube on Alter, and it gets eyes on their product, and they get feedback on what they're creating. And I did that, and I kind of promoted a few things that I was watching, and then that got filmmakers' attention, and they were like, oh, well, I'm going to be at a film festival. Let me put you in contact with film festivals. And now I'm attending film festivals to promote independent filmmaking. And it's kind of snowballed from there, really. And I'm like yourself, I'm starting to build interviews with directors and people in the horror space to talk about what they're creating, what their inspiration is, what drives them as a creative in this genre. And also I'm building a community with like-minded people in the horror space. They could be physical media collectors. They could be people who love Funko Pops of the horror genre. They could be people who go to conventions religiously. They could be filmmakers themselves. So I do a top 5 collaboration where every day I have a new person featured who wants to share their favorite films with them on a new platform. And I'm like, for me, it's building a community that I didn't have, and a space that I can talk about stuff that I love on a selfish level, but it's seemingly resonating with people. And now I'm in a wonderful position where I'm able to talk to those same people about things that I'm seeing for the first time and give them recommendations. And likewise, those people are coming to me with recommendations. They're going, oh, well, actually, if you love this, you will like that. And it's wonderful. It's a safe space. It's unlike anything else I've experienced in social since I discovered it in my late teens. It's always, for me, social was always quite a toxic place. But it's really brought a wealth of support, acceptance, and knowing that I'm not alone in enjoying the really dark, morbid stuff that I like watching. I know there are other twisted souls out there, and it's wonderful, and actually the horror community is full of so many wonderful people. Everyone's so friendly and welcoming. I haven't really, maybe a couple of hostile interactions with people, but they're very much in the minimum. It's very, very accepting, and everyone has their own place, and it's wonderful. So I kind of just did it for my own thing and just trying to find people that were like-minded, and it's worked. So
it was kind of harder for me, obviously, because of the era I grew up in. Because obviously in the 80s we didn't have, in the 70s, especially in the 70s, we didn't have social media. And unfortunately, being a horror lover, most of my friends, boys, would look at me and says, "Monty, why do you like all that horror shit? You're weird. You like all that weird shit. I can't watch that stuff like that." So I really didn't have anybody to talk to at all growing up, being a horror fan. And when I eventually, got onto YouTube and I was watching all of the reviewers and eventually saw people that loved horror, and I said to myself, wow, there's a lot of people that love horror. So I went on ahead and created my YouTube channel, and then eventually I got involved with all the horror community, especially some of the bigger names and some of the smaller names, and then that's where I built my community. And I eventually decided to create this series because I felt that when I saw that there was a grassroots organization called Women in Horror, I said, hey, you know what? It's about time. Because my mother taught me to respect women, plain and simple. And so I've always will respect women, and I respect what women have done in the horror community, and that's why I came up with this series.
Yeah, this is wonderful. It's truly wonderful. It's great to have a platform. And I think I'm probably going to be a little bit in trouble for saying this, but I don't care. Like, to have a man to push that forward is truly wonderful. You have a lot of these where they're women for women and it's a safe space, but to have a male voice present, promoting and encouraging that as well, and being forthright in having those conversations is refreshing, and it's wonderful. So I fully support your work. And when you reached out to me and you started following me, I was like, oh my God, I looked at some of your work and the standard of people you've had on this, I was a bit mind blown. I'm like, you want me? I'm just a girl who watches film. You have all these incredible professors and scholars and literary experts and filmmakers. And I'm like, I'm just a girl who watches the stuff. I'm a consumer, but it's wonderful to be able to have a voice. And I really appreciate you taking the time because it means a lot.
You
It really
must,
does.
yeah, you must have saw the one I did with the Professor Horror.
I
That
did,
was
yes. That was the first one
yeah.
I checked out after you reached out, and I was like, oh wow, what a mind
Oh yeah,
shift.
Kathy Simon. She's very I love because that's interesting because when I first saw her on Instagram and I saw that she actually had a course, I said, "Oh, she'd be perfect for women in horror."
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah. So I was a little bit mind blown when you reached out to me, but I'm so grateful. And it's nice, as you say, to like to have a voice in any platform is
mm,
wonderful. But to be able to consider all female voices in this genre is great, regardless if you're a professional creative or you're just a
mm.
consumer like myself. Like everybody
Yeah,
has an equal voice and a
you know,
different
you
view.
know, yeah, because of all because early on, all the women that I've interviewed, mostly have YouTube channels, and I'm pretty sure they just like of you unfortunately experiences the negative aspect of a woman, expressing her opinions on horror, and most of them would get the same thing. It's like you're not cute enough, you're too
Yeah.
fat. It's like you're not even listening to what I'm saying. All you're
Yeah.
doing is either criticizing me because he's saying I'm too fat, I'm not ugly,
Yeah.
blase, blase. But then don't watch my videos then.
Yeah. And
you
I've
know.
been really fortunate in that I haven't really experienced that
Hmm.
yet. It will come. I'm not blind to that
Mm.
fact. But if it does, then that's people's opinion.
Hmm.
Politely acknowledge, smile, and walk away. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be there to have a fight with a troll. That's not my issue. That's
No.
you. You want to have your opinion. You want to ruin someone's day. You go and do that somewhere else, please, sir or madam.
Yeah.
You're not for me, that's not for me. I'm a safe space for everybody. I'm a wonderful like advocate for people, and I just generally don't have the time or the bandwidth. Like I do this as a passion. I do this
Hmm.
outside of a 9 to 5. My partner will attest, I have an attic space in our house, and that's my studio. It's not really, it's a desk where I worked at 9 to 5, and then I break the other laptop out, and I write reviews, and I
Oh
watch
yeah.
content, and I film myself, and I do that till the late hours, and then I'm up at the crack of dawn again to rinse and repeat before work. So this
Hmm.
everything that I create and I put out is a passion for me. It's not a job. I'm not asked to do it as anything on behalf of anyone. I'm not promoting anything that I don't want to promote, and I don't
Hmm.
put a voice to it. If I don't like it, then I will let them know, look, this isn't for me. I don't want to put money into it. And also I don't want to put a negative slant on somebody's filmmaking. As an
Hmm.
example, if somebody takes the moment to share with me, it's a privilege to be able to see something that they're passionate about and that they put their time, money, and effort into. And I will always try and find a positive. It won't necessarily be what they want to hear, but I'll always
Hmm.
find something wonderful to say, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like if I was to create something and someone trashed it, how awful would that be? You just don't have
Because
the
it's the
space for
same
that.
for me because I do tech support for a university hospital here in Philadelphia. So like I said, this is just passion for me because this is a hobby. You know,
Yeah.
if I get paid for it, good. If not, oh
Yeah.
well. But I wasn't trying to make this into like a job like some people do. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I can monetize it, wonderful, because
Oh yeah.
we all would love a world where we can make money off of our passion, right? Because then
Mm-hmm.
it's not work, it's being paid to do what you enjoy. But it's a pipe dream. Not everyone can do it, and
Yep.
I'm more than happy to put my free time into it while I'm still enjoying it. If there's a day where it becomes too stressful and I don't see the joy anymore, then I hang up the eyeball and I'm not doing it anymore. But for now, I'm loving
Mm-hmm.
it. Absolutely
I
loving
know
it.
it was the eyeball that caught my attention.
Yeah, my good friend Paul. So when I started this, I was so mindset on doing it that I rushed and I created an AI logo very similar
Mm,
to this,
mm,
but you could tell it was AI, and I'm sure it has its place, but I'm very doubtful, and I'm not the most for it, because I'm very much
mm,
of an era where my little Terminator brain goes, Sarah Connor would not be happy with me. Why am I doing this? And so I, as I say, I got into a community of like-minded people, and there's a very good friend of mine in that group who happens to be a graphic designer, and they said, I hope you don't mind me saying, but that eyeball logo of yours. And I said, well, I know a couple of other graphic designer friends, and I was waiting to have the budget to pay somebody to design me something personally. And he heard that and he went, have you got anything in mind? And I just said, well, I just want an eyeball, but I want color, I want pop, I want something. And then 10 minutes later that arrived in my inbox, and I was like, mind blown. That's exactly what I wanted. And it's green, it's red, and it pops and it's vibrant. And you can tell I'm a bit of a personality. I wanted something that was vibrant, that would catch the eye, but still is you can tell it's horror. And yeah, so eternally grateful for the great community I have around me, because otherwise I'd still be sitting in AI hell. You know, and people would look at me, and I see so much of it, and it's great. If that's the space you want to be around and you want to create that imagery, that's wonderful and good for you, because we all start somewhere. And if you have that belief in that technology, that's great. I'm not going to slag it off, but it wasn't for me. It was a placeholder, and this is my brand now. I have a wonderful team who are working on a follow-up to an independent film that I promoted beginning of this year. And they are creating something to put me in the film, some kind of representation. Ooh. They sent me my logo on something, and I'm going to be on the screen in some representation in the film. And I was like,
that's good.
That's really awesome. I found that in my inbox today, and my mind was blown. I was like, what? My logo's going to be where? It's crazy to me.
That's great.
Yeah,
I had to look out for it.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. It'll be everywhere. You won't miss it.
Okay. My final question for you is that if you could write or create a horror film, what type of horror film would it be, and what subgenre would it be?
Oh God. So I have a friend who does collaborations in the Instagram space, and he had a really cool collaboration idea, inviting people to write their own horror, and he did like 6 or 7 bullet points to kind of get it started. And I had this idea for a film in my head, but it was going to be more of a horror short story. I don't want to put too much out there because I really still want to create it. But it was kind of like on the back of a pandemic, so like the COVID-19 era. And it's based in Sudan, of all places, and basically a nature reserve. And this family run this nature reserve, but because they have to be indoors, nature starts to take over. And they come back and they realize that the creatures they were once looking after have reclaimed the land outside of the reserve, and they don't take too kindly to the humans that they instinctively thought were holding them captive. And it kind of goes a Jurassic Park vibe, and it's all hell breaks loose. So I have the bones of a story there, more of a short story kind of vibe. I also have some other ideas. I have some ethereal kind of Lovecraftian horror ideas as well. So because I consume all kind of subgenres, I really like playing in those kind of different spaces. So that's kind of where I was going with it. And I'd love to do something in that space. I just need the bandwidth and the time to be able to sit and to write and develop. But like my favorite subgenre is found footage and live screen horror. And I think what the guys did with Host is a true inspiration. So if I could play in that space as well and try and figure something out there, that would be a dream.
Because one of your videos you were talking about found footage horror films, and I have, of course, I love found footage horror films if it's good.
Oh yeah, there's a great one that I'm putting up a review for. That I did an interview with the chap who is now hopefully a bit of a friend. So I went to see his film by chance at a film festival in January, and it's a screen life film, but it's he's a big nerd, so it's a D&D session online on Zoom with 5 characters, and then some magic happens and they unlock a curse and everyone gets slaughtered in horrendous ways. But it's so wonderfully done, and on the concept of a D&D game, it's so wonderfully nerdy, and it's expertly done. It has typical British humor in it as well, so it's likable. It's not just gore for the sake of gore. So when the impact happens, it's more impactful when shit goes to the fan, as it were. So yeah, it's really great, and I love that stuff because especially with Screen Life, It's
Mhm.
it's relatable. We're all now virtually connected in ways we never have been before.
Mhm.
And I'm waiting for someone else to do a similar take on Stephen King's Cell, where it's transmittable through a phone. We obviously had Pontypool, which was the zombie virus through speech, which
Yes.
was incredible. We obviously had Cell, which was
Mm.
through viral networks through the phone signal. But I'm waiting for the next one. If there's going to be something on TikTok, will be the next thing.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be coming out soon. Somebody's going to have a horror film based upon TikTok.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. You know, it used to be the dance trend, and now it's everyone selling mops and God knows what else on TikTok. So yeah, it's a bit crazy. But
All
yeah,
right. Well,
I have a
I
question for
really.
you. Actually, let's do that very quickly.
All right. Go ahead.
If you were going to create a horror film, what would your idea be? I'm
Oh,
always intrigued.
if I would create a horror film, it would be more likely on the vein of like say a supernatural film. I would see
Mhm.
a vampire because vampires are my favorite supernatural creatures when
Ooh.
it comes to that. Almost kind of similar to what Underworld would be, because I would want to do something different when it comes to the mythos of vampires. Somewhat keep some of the same things as vampire, but a little bit different.
Mm.
And I would have like the vampires. They do what they have to do to survive, but they also have their own laws and who they
Mm.
attack and who they don't attack. Almost something like to the vein of Affliction. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes. Oh, Affliction is so good. I
Hmm.
saw Night Patrol recently as well, and if you haven't had a moment to check that out, that
Oh,
plays with the vampire lore very well. It's very clever.
yeah.
As
Someone asked me to take a look at Night Patrol, and it's I get the idea. It's a little bit different, but
yeah,
the execution is the execution is, how can I put this? Not good.
it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like they try to tackle a lot of social issues,
Yeah,
um,
I
and
like the,
it
I
loses.
like the fact it's an urban setting.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's obviously back during the '90s when you had the Blood and the Crips going after each other, and I like the fact the idea and the premise is good. It's just that the execution and the dialogue, and
mm,
I don't know if they were in a limited budget or not. CM Punk is in the film.
yeah.
He chews up every scene he's in.
And
That's what.
Justin Long was the best character in that for me.
Mm,
It was my best role for him. He was
mhm.
great in Barbarian because he played a bit of a bastard. I liked him in,
Yeah,
in Barbarian, but he was great in that. I didn't
you
actually
know.
recognize it was Justin Long until the credits, and I was like, "Oh
Well, no,
wow!"
yeah, I knew it was just long because I saw the trailer for it and I knew he was in it.
I hadn't seen
But
the
yeah,
trailer. I went in
yeah,
blind.
that's the problem I have with Night Patrol. It's like I like the attempt. I like what they were trying to do, and I always try to, just like I always try to give some positive when I see bad horror films,
Mm.
except for The Strangers. It's The
Oh
Strangers.
yeah, I haven't seen part two. That's the thing because I didn't mind part one for the newer
Mhm,
trilogy. I heard the backlash for part two, and I can understand it because I haven't seen it and I haven't seen part three because I saw the trailer for part two, and
mhm,
you know the final girl survives. So what was the point in part two? Just make it a two-parter. Like
mhm.
she's not under threat, so I didn't get it. And yeah, I think Prey at Night was just the peak for that franchise, and they should have left
Oh
it at
yeah,
Prey at Night. There was
yeah,
just no
yeah.
need.
But how unfortunately how movie studios are. It's like, gotta make that money. Gotta make that
Yeah, they're
money.
trying
And
to do it with Terrifier. I mean, the studios are
mm,
trying to buy it off Damien Leone, and he's not having it. He's like, no, I'm done at 4. I'm writing my story. It's all there. I've got it conceptualized. I know
mm,
what I want. Art the Clown is mine. He's my concept from an indie, small indie Ninth Circle film, and he's kept it, and it's his baby. I've heard that he's going to be moving on to a potential project with Sam Raimi, which would be mind blowing. I need to see
mhm.
that film, whatever that turns out to be. But yeah, it's really funny. And actually, you were saying about the vampire concept, taking it out of its wheelhouse. That's what I really enjoyed with Blade. That's always going to be one
Mhm.
of my favorite vampire films. Making him a hybrid, making him a daywalker, but making him vulnerable but tough. You know, the
Mm.
Wesley Snipes of old that we remember from Demolition Man and Days Gone By, like making him a badass. That was a great choice for
Okay,
me.
okay.
I loved it.
Well, Janine, it was been a pleasure to have you on Women in Horror. You were a fantastic guest. Everyone's going to love what you had to say.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry,
And
I probably overran, but I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me as well.
oh no, it's one of the good things I love about this series is that I love interacting with with people who love horror, but all the questions and everyone, especially as a woman who is passionate about you are when it comes to the horror genre. So I appreciate you being honest and your passion because that's what we are. We love horror and we're passionate about it, and that's the reason why I do this series is
Mm.
because having the women such as yourself show how passionate you are when it comes to the horror genre.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and thank you for giving us a forum as well. And keep up the good work because I thoroughly enjoy watching your stuff, and I'm going to continue supporting. It's wonderful.
Okay. I will have all of Janae's links in the description box below. And once again, thank you for having on. Thank you for coming on to my channel. And
Thank
as always, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as the Horror Miser Monty G. And always remember, horror rules.
you.
Please stay safe out there.